Is China the first domino to fall? That's the question a lot of people are asking right now. What I'm talking about today is something that I brought up in my book. And you can see from this simple diagram, the book is filled with these type of diagrams. The US is giving China nothing but IOUs, and China is giving them and the rest of the Western world real goods. But a problem is happening internally in China. And that's the same thing that's going on in places like the US. And that is we have a fictional environment. Let's talk about China now. Is the China bank run beginning? Farmers co-op unable to pay depositors. And this is something that's real because these farmers who are in many ways in any country really the backbone, because food being so essential, without those farmers there, without them being able to afford their crops, you don't have food. When you don't have food, you have a skyrocketing in prices. That's what's happening here. And take a look at this line that I've highlighted. There is, quote, no money and the doors are locked because they need to borrow and borrow and borrow because the real money has run out a long time ago. This is a problem that has gone worldwide. It's not just the US. We talk about, myself included, we talk about the dangers of the US in a hyperinflationary scenario. But because of globalization, this is worldwide. And China could be the catalyst, could be something serious that's going on right now. China's first default is coming. Here's what to expect. I love Zero Hedge and their articles. Unfortunately, it doesn't work so well for showing it on YouTube. But let's take a look very quickly. I'll move off it. The first shadow default in Chinese history. And they're talking about $500 million outstanding. And they're going to let it go. And they're not going to bail them out, apparently. We'll see what happens, though. What they're talking about here is basically more of the same, and that is, even though they've been printing money and injecting it into the economy using their strategies like any other central bank, this is the People's Bank of China, this has not done what they needed to do because they're going to have defaults, and these defaults are within this financial shadow banking industry. They're able to print trillions of dollars, or in this case yuan, inject it into the economy and have it funnel through and help out their friends. But look at the farmers. The farmers themselves are unable to afford anything anymore. Why? Because they've been strangled so terribly, and all they're able to use is these futures contracts and other things that do not really exist. They're simply numbers on paper, and numbers on a computer screen somewhere. The real value is gone. This is something that I've been warning about for a while. When you have no real economy, when you have nothing but ghost towns like this individual, you're not going to get real GDP growth. This farmer right here, see, he's happy to accept the government's arrangements. They're talking about the ghost cities. Yeah, sure, he'll move off his farm, no problem. As long as he does whatever the government says, everything's going to be just fine. But where is this farmer going to work now? He's got a city that nobody's there. What's he gonna do? And that's the big problem that's happening. And I believe China is going to become more poor in the near future. What this will do to them, will it trigger something regionally in a wider scale? I'm not too sure. I will tell you statistically that the yuan is doing exceptional against the US dollar, of course, as I predicted and many others predicted as well. They've been letting it steadily rise. Now, what happens with these defaults? I'm not sure how that's going to affect it, but that is something to note. And it just, it isn't that one thing. Look at this. Top China banks triple debt write-offs as defaults loom. And this is back in October. Many things are defaulting, as I said, because it's all fictional. I'm not going to stay on this anymore. I want to note that this just is not China's problem. It is a globalized economy. I would also like to note to you that Jim Rickards I believe it was him who wrote Currency Wars. I highly recommend reading that because it will tell you that China could use this moment to engage in a currency war. As if they're not already doing it, but I mean stepping up the scale here. So it is something to pay attention to and something we need to really keep a close eye on. I want to note, as I have a million times before, that this economy worldwide is fake. See, the Canadian banking industry received bailouts from the Federal Reserve during the financial crisis. Why in the world would Canadian banks get a bailout from a U.S. central bank? It doesn't make any sense unless you really think about it and say to yourself, something deeper is going on. We're not allowed to know about it. And ultimately, we have lost control. Individuals are dumping their money into this banking industry, hoping to get their money back. I'll tell you right now, there's an individual I consult, and he's mid-level in the financial industry here in Canada. And he said, you don't have to worry about the inflation because we're exporting it. This doesn't make a single ounce of sense to me. Because we're in that globalized environment, we all have to share these problems. Of course, what's happening in China now, let's say they're the first domino to fall, it will then continue and spread. You could not pass this off. This is not a game. That's how this works. And I've been beating this into people's heads, including this individual, because we need to get serious. You're dumping your money and clients' money into this scam, into this global Ponzi scheme. And how are you going to feel when it all crashes down and these people are coming to you and asking for your advice again? You're not going to feel good, and that's not what I personally do. I get people prepared because I have a conscience. And that's what I intend on doing, and I intend on sharing more of this information. If you want deeper analysis, I hope you'll join me on the Money GPS Insiders. Once again, to go there, go to themoneygps.com, scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and we're going to share deeper information that I can get into on there that I can on the YouTube. I don't like to go too long on here. And I'd just like to say, if you love liberty, please give me a thumbs up.